Hello, welcome back to How to RPG. This is all about skill challenges today. For those of you who wanted skill challenges, well, you get skill challenges. And I'm going to point you in the direction of Esper's Emporium of Esoterica, which I've received the book not that long ago, and Wally DM's Journal of Puzzle Encounters, Pathfinder's Game Mastery Guide, but there are also the 4E Dungeon Master Guides. There's 1 and 2, and they are both specifically got stuff around skill challenges. But this is also me showing you how to sort of update them, their concepts. I'm going to put up a poll and ask you a question. Feel free to take part in that poll. I'm trying to present you with more things and more options, and I'm trying to update concepts that have existed before. And we'll do my very best to make sure that all works out in some way. We'll see how well this works. Okay. So grab some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to apologise. My voice is kind of cracking a little bit. It's going to sound a little bit funny today, but we'll see how we go. Okay. All right. So let's just unplug this. And I will be explaining how to build skill challenges, and we'll be making a skill challenge today, a collapsing building. It's quite common that people would like to have a collapsing building, I find. I've used it more than a few times. I couldn't find my old one, so we're going to have to rebuild it from scratch, unfortunately. So, yes, we'll do that. Let's go over here. I think I'm just about all in the right place. Okay, cool. Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about role-playing games and presenting you with a challenge. This is all about game master preparation. This is lesson 7, creating skill challenges, where I give you an idea of how to modernize the concept of the skill challenge that was presented in 4E, and I am also trying to open it up so that it doesn't ruin your game in terms of mechanics overriding narrative. So the overview for today and its purpose is why use a skill challenge. I'll explain when you would want to use them. How to create a skill challenge. The player actions in a skill challenge. The skill challenge consequences that you need to build. And then of course some miscellaneous recommendations. Now, like with everything I do, I have some objectives. I'm going to explain how to create a skill challenge for a role-playing game. It doesn't need to be Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or anything like that. It can be any game. I'm also going to demonstrate how to build a skill challenge for the role-playing game. We're not going to just explain, we're going to demonstrate and allow you sort of like a practice playthrough. You're going to help me in this process. I have to say a big thank you because this is a sponsored video, World Anvil, which is a website that allows you to put all of your homebrew collections in one place. They are sponsoring this live stream, which is quite unusual for anybody to sponsor a live stream, but they are. And if you want to take all of your papers that you've put together into a physical folder and you want to put it online, this is the place to do it. You can put your magic items, your monsters, your NPCs, your adventures, your all the things that you create for your game can go there, and you'll find a link down in the description to that website if you're interested. Okay, let's get straight into the business of today, shall we? And that is skill challenges. Absolutely, skill challenges. Why use a skill challenge? A skill challenge tells part of the story or the adventure story in a cinematic manner that is broader than just combat mechanics or casting a single spell or making a single dice roll. That's not what we're trying to do with a skill challenge. Skill challenges are good for action scenes or sequences, a large-scale battle rather than a small-scale battle, which we normally present in our role-playing games, or traps. They make the best skill challenges, in my opinion. If the skill challenge doesn't have enough scenes or events to overcome, then it's probably better not to be a skill challenge without adjustment. Sometimes it's fine to resolve a problem with a single action or a dice roll mechanic rather than trying to build an entire skill challenge around it. You resolve it with a single action or a single dice roll. Skill challenges don't work well for combat encounters. Puzzles don't work well as a skill challenge. Social interactions and research exercises. You're better off to use a different method. So that's the basics around what would make a good skill challenge. How to create a skill challenge. So how do we actually do that? Design skill challenges with a series of narrative events or obstacles for the player characters to overcome. That's your first task. Define a clear goal for the whole skill challenge and each stage with a consequence for success and failure at each stage of that skill challenge. Involve everybody in that skill challenge with a group dice roll test, possibly. Otherwise, a few player characters will use their high attribute or ability or even skill bonuses to dominate the entire skill challenge, and it really won't be a party experience, it'll be a single player doing all the work. Don't have a long skill challenge. 3 to 4 group dice rolls or stages is recommended as a maximum in my opinion. Anything beyond that is probably too much. Arrange different consequences for failing a step in the skill challenge and the overall skill challenge. These can be a loss of, say, fate points if you're using fate, hero points, action points, health points, hit points, morale, hit dice. They could be spells. You could gain a condition. Exhaustion could be brought in, or some sort of story-related consequence that isn't mechanical but will impact the ability for the player characters to make decisions in the future. Events or obstacles that could or will end a skill challenge. Anything that would or could end that skill challenge should always be placed at the end of the skill challenge. Never place them in the middle. And that's how you go about making a skill challenge. Player actions in a skill challenge. What do they look like? Well, explain that the players need to state the action their character makes. Sorry. Explain to the players they need to state the action the character makes, not just pick an attribute, an ability, or a skill dice roll test to make, because that's not a really good skill challenge. That's actually quite mechanical and often is quite boring. So they explain their actions. First thing, try to use different attributes or abilities or skills in the skill challenge. But you don't have to avoid the same attribute in sequence if it makes sense to the story or narrative. So I know a lot of people put forward that you should never have the same skill being used or the same ability score being used. That's not really necessary. If it makes sense, then yes, allow it. It's wise to allow a secondary attribute, ability, or skill dice roll or test to gain something like advantage, where you roll 2 dice and take the highest result, or disadvantage, where you roll 2 dice and take the lowest result. Benefits and penalties to the main group dice roll test could also apply, whatever they might be. They might be numerical bonuses, okay, of +1 or +2 or +5, or they might be penalties of -1, -2, -5. Because you can involve a wider range of potential attributes, abilities, and skills and knowledges. This is why we use secondary testing. And secondary things can come into play over the primary thing that we're trying to do. Skill challenges don't have to include an attribute, an ability, or a skill dice roll test necessarily. This is, by design, the default, okay? The default is you fall back on this. You can, in fact, use other tests. You could try using a saving throw, any kind of saving throw dice mechanic, or even an attack roll. Or make no dice rolls whatsoever. We can look at completely different options. The classes, the heroic career path they have, the race or species features, spells, magic items, clever ideas, and the smart use of mundane equipment can result in automatic success or potentially replace a dice roll test for an individual and possibly group tests as well. So you don't need to just rely on rolling dice. They might be using some of their other features their character has to solve the problem they have been presented with. Be wary of players trying to get success for the whole group with a single high attribute, ability or skill bonus that the character has. This is quite common because often when you present a skill challenge, it looks like, particularly if it seems mechanical, it seems like something you have to win. And to win, you use the numbers. Skill challenge consequences. You need to have consequences for your skill challenge, otherwise it's not really a challenge. Don't be married to the skill challenge being failed overall with a set number of failed dice rolls or tests, even if that is the usual method. Always avoid breaking the narrative of an action scene. So what that means is often you would be presented with you need to get a certain number of successes before you get a certain number of failures for the entire skill challenge when you look at all the different stages. Although this is the default, it's not necessarily going to be terribly useful to you overall when you're running a skill challenge. If a player chooses not to take part in the skill challenge, I would count that as an automatic failure for an individual and for the group. Okay, when you count up all the individuals and you determine how many in the group are successful, and usually we look at that in terms of being half the group being successful and the whole group succeeds. So you would count them as one failure towards the group, and for their individual test or task for that particular stage of the skill challenge, they will automatically fail it. And of course, they bear the consequence of that failure. Now this is to stop people from opting out when they know that they can't be successful mechanically, because you're not expected in a skill challenge to always be successful. There'll be certain things that you're good at and certain things you're not so good at. Set a target number or a difficulty class or DC that makes sense for the character's action, not their character level. That is not the dial for difficulty that you need to worry about. The dial for difficulty looks like something else. So target numbers, difficulty class, set it based on what the character's trying to do, what makes sense. To ensure that each stage of the skill challenge is fair and balanced, divide the character with the least maximum hit points or hit dice, or even if you're dealing with health points, by the number of scenes inflicting injuries. Okay, and that is how many hit points or hit dice for each stage would reduce them by side. You're looking at the average, so you take the average for every stage that reduces hit points or health points for the character with the least number of hit points or health points. It probably will be a wizard or a caster. And when you add all those averages up for all the stages, if that adds up to their maximum hit points, you know that you've gone too hard. You've made it too difficult. Okay? The idea is not to kill them. Okay? The idea is to challenge them. That doesn't mean that characters won't die in skill challenges, because it can happen. Adjust the consequences of failure to reflect the party and the character's level by using the trap damage severity by level table in the Dungeon Master Guide for D&D 5e on page 121. If you're playing 5e, if you're not playing 5e, my suggestion to you is you use the process that I explained before. Okay, whether you're using hit points, health points, or wounds, you simply take the number of stages. Okay, you add up all the average damage that is being done for each stage, and when you look at it, if it adds up exactly to the maximum hit points of the person with the lowest number of hit or health points, you know you've made the task too difficult. Okay, so now that is essentially the process for determining how to make your skill challenge consequences work for you, I always like to give out some miscellaneous recommendations, and I'm going to do that again. The first thing I want to say is don't break the narrative of the scenes presented by the skill challenge. The narrative is far more important than the mechanical aspect of the game. Don't let players come up with a contrived rationale why something might apply. So if they decide to pick an ability, an attribute, a skill, and they come up with some really weird way that they would go about using it, and you don't think it really makes sense at all for the narrative, then don't accept it. Okay? Players need to work on the concept of present an action that makes sense and then apply it to the situation and then see what the consequence is. And that's your job as the game master to determine that. If the skill challenge becomes a series of attribute, ability, or skill dice roll tests, then it's most likely going to be a very poor experience for the game master and the players. I would say that these are probably the worst skill challenges that you can put out. That doesn't mean that you don't have these pre-arranged calculations and the information ready to go. But if that's all it winds up being, you'll probably find it won't be a great experience. Avoid focusing on the mathematics of the game, because that creates a lot more work for a game master, and it makes it much harder for the players running a character to succeed when they have a smart idea. Smart ideas always win over mathematics. That's always how it works. If you do it that way, your narrative and the experience that you have and your players have will be a good one. It will be worthwhile. So I hope that this was useful to you. If it was, great. I'm really happy. I want to thank World Anvil for supporting me and sponsoring this live stream. I want to say thank you to all of my patrons who also support me on Patreon. All of the stuff I do here goes onto Patreon. You'll find that information is going up on there. Okay? That's where you'll find it. So wherever you are in the world, look after yourself, your family and friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. All right, give me a second. Get some water into me. I've got to find a better way of explaining balancing consequences. I feel like every time I get there, I feel like I'm stumbling a little bit. But yeah. So, just happens that Nacho Man is here. How's it going? Mike Hall, how are you? How's life? Life is I'm doing all right with everything. It's been all right. I'm quite happy with how things are working out so far. So I'm probably going to struggle a little bit today. I'm going to apologize for that. I don't know what it is. It's just a change of seasons. We're going from summer into sort of autumn. And I'm just not dealing well with it. I guess that's part of the problem. So yes, that's how I am today. We're going to be making a skill challenge very shortly. I've already done a little bit of the work in advance. I apologize for not doing it from absolute scratch. But I just didn't think I could handle doing it completely from scratch. It's nice if I don't have to keep copying and pasting stuff over, and so I'm trying to avoid that this time around if I can. So yeah, if you're hoping to see everything exactly from scratch, it's probably not going to happen that way. Nacho Man, hello Nacho Man. So Nacho Man is a patron, supports me on Patreon. You'll find. So Nacho, when you came and you asked me about building a skill challenge for a building, I knew that we would roll round to doing this. So I know you've already run your skill challenge for a collapsing, like a cave, a building or a cave. It's the same principle, okay? I've already kind of figured out the basics for this. So... Overboard, how's it going, Overboard? Overboard, Joe, how are you doing? He's a patron, also a moderator, and he's been with me a while now. He's got his own YouTube channel, deals with miniatures and terrain and so forth. I'm sure a few of you already know this. How's it going? Not too bad. Okay, so Nacho, this is how I ended Lost Mine of Phandelver. Collapsed Wave Echo Cave, okay, and run a skill challenge. My player said it was one of the highlights of the game. Now, that's good to hear. So you're going to be able to put in your own 2 cents, because I'm probably not going to run it with 6 successes before 3 failures. I'm going to present you with a completely different way of looking at it. because I've run collapsing buildings before. So for those of you who don't understand what's going to happen, what we're going to do is I'm going to build it so that it can be used for 5e. Okay? So it will be compatible with 5e. It will probably be compatible with 4e, 3.5, any version of Dungeons & Dragons, frankly, because I'll put in enough there that you can use it with any version of D&D. If you're playing Pathfinder, you can use it in Pathfinder. If you're using a different system, there'll be enough there that's generic enough in nature that you could use it in any role-playing game. So it's intended, the draft will have a lot of 5e language built into it when I'm doing the document, but essentially you'll still have all the pieces and parts of the puzzle that you need. Okay, so don't worry too much about the fact that you may not be able to port it over to your own game, because I can assure you you will be able to. Mike, collapsing building does sound like a fun challenge. I am surprised I haven't heard of it. It's so common. It is common, but it's also one of those things that you can't find, and it's not in the Dungeon Master Guide for. So there's two Dungeon Master Guides that you would be looking at if you were thinking about skill challenges that Wizards of the Coast put out. Like, people have put out better products, but this is the second. There's the number 2. This is 4E. Okay, Dungeon Master Guide. There's some stuff in here. No collapsing building. Okay. No collapsing building. And then this one here, okay, the first Dungeon Master Guide for 4e. No collapsing building. Yet, it is often, when I was playing 4e, it was the first thing that people were looking at. It's either that or the chase, collapsing building or the chase. And there are a few others, but I always consider them to be a really poor example of a skill challenge. So I divided my consequences into total successes, partial success, and total failure. 6 successes before 3 failures. So what do you got here, Joe? What's the question? If a building is collapsing, what would Vegemite do? Vegemite would run flailing and screaming the whole time, eating a carrot, of course. Vegemite may well be responsible for the collapsing building. Look, so the joke, for those of you who haven't figured it out, I for years people have been trying to get me to play in a live stream game, and so Esper the Bard said you can play a monster in a game with my monstrous heroes, which we're going to be building monstrous hero this week. I think it's the vampire. I think that's right. You just don't know that I haven't put it up yet. I haven't made it public. People were upset that I kept putting all 6 of my live streams public straight away, so I stopped doing that. So yeah, so I played. I know he wants me to come back, but it's probably not going to happen. Okay, I've got too much to do. So what do we got here? Would you reward smart ideas with advantage on a dice roll? Yes, I would, but I would also reward smart ideas with automatic success, particularly if it doesn't seem like it should fail. Look, this is one of those things where you look at a situation like, it doesn't actually seem reasonable to make it fail when they've planned so well and the idea is such a good one. Why would you let it fail? Yeah. Okay, so we've gone into this way too much. Let's just get on with the task. Now, you keep asking questions, people. I will get my phone. Where did I put my phone? I've lost my phone. Let me get my page up so you can see where I'm sort of what I'm working from. Yeah, I think that's right. Here we go. That's the one. And we just need to transition over to the screen. If I can find it. No, that's not it. This might be it here. Oh, that's good. That's a good sign. So you need to tell me if I haven't made the screen big enough. If it's too small, the words too small, and I need to blow it up a bit more, I will. I feel like I've blown it up as much as I possibly can. But you will let me know if it's not big enough. Okay. All right. So I'll grab my phone because it's probably over here somewhere. All right, squeezing back in here. So I'm going to be asking you a bunch of questions, people, as we go today. And as I ask these questions, you're going to fill in the gaps. Oh, not that. No sound. No sound. Okay, thank you. All right. Hello, Charles Butler. How are you doing, Charles? Just perspective, how long did the prep work you've already done take? Oh, of the prep work for this, are you talking about the skill challenge presentation, or are you talking about the skill challenge, Charles? Yeah, good to know what that yeah, I need to know that to know what I'm answering here, to give you an idea. So one of the things you'll find with skill challenges, if you're really good at them, that you can probably put them together fast. I find they're not that easy to put together fast. And so this is why I make stuff that you'll reuse over and over again. It's quite deliberate on my part. So when they go up into Patreon, like you'll just reuse a lot of these things. And so what I've done here is, those of you who remember, I made an earthquake natural hazard as a skill challenge. Okay, that was the skill challenge. I've taken that one and I've simply made a copy of it, and I have changed the title. That's all I've done, Charles. So if you're wondering what was going on there, Charles is also a patron, if I remember, Charles Butler. So that's the extent. So it didn't take me that long, but there's still a lot of work to do. So collapsing building. So a collapsing building. Okay, so while I'm doing some adjustments here, I'm going to put into chat. I'm going to ask you a question. I've already got some notes down on a piece of paper which I will transfer into here. So hashtag. What obstacles should player characters encounter as they escape a collapsing building? So that is your first task, is to answer that question. Let's have a look and see what Charles said. My bad. I was attempting to refer to the prep for this skill challenge, not the presentation. No, okay. So that's what I would say. It took me I took an old skill challenge, which was the earthquake one, which is up on Patreon already. I have just put a title on it. That's all I've done, and I was wandering around over the past week or two, trying to decide on what would be appropriate challenge, obstacles for a collapsing building. And because I'd lost the old one, and so I had to try to remember what I'd done before, and I decided there were 3 things that I needed to do. Okay, so that didn't take me that long, because it was kind of done while I was sort of wandering around during my day. So I haven't done a lot of work on it. If you're wondering, that's how it is. Falling ceiling or debris. Well done. You've got it. That was the first one I had down. Okay. Not bad. Pretty good. I almost brought that Vault D&D book that came out recently. I seen the limited edition cover art, and it almost had me. I refrained from giving WizKids. You talking about WizKids, or are you talking about Wizards of the Coast? It was hard to resist. Hey, look, exploding water pipes. Possibly, yeah. Interesting, Mike. Exploding water pipes. I'm only going to put down 3. Okay. So you might find there are a few things that you would have to build yourself if you wanted to do so. Fire. Well, so escape. So here's an example of fire is a good idea, but fire is its own skill challenge. Do you know why? because fire presents the same same sort of obstacles as the collapsing building. So when we're finished with the collapsing building, you can have building on fire as a new skill challenge, and you just change the title, and almost all the mechanics behind it will be exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? So you'll be able to just it'll be an easy revamp. These are the skills my players used. Survival, remember the way out. Yes, you could do that. Yes. Nature, I can detect the fresh air from outside. Acrobatics, dodging falling rubble. Athletics equals lifting objects, blocking exits. Okay, so you have just pointed out, Nacho, the next challenge that I would suggest in the middle. Falling ceiling, debris, good idea. Second one, blocked doorway. So this is either blocking the door or the doorway, or both, with a fallen rafter or debris that's come down from the ceiling. And so if they don't succeed, then they have to take a different route. And that different route will take longer. That's what we're looking at. So that's spot on. Well done. Nice job. Missing floor sections. Yes, you could have missing floor sections. So 6. Missing floor sections. So now we're making them jump. That's actually quite clever. A missing floor section is a pretty clever sort of, and it's going to force them to do something slightly different than they did before, potentially. Yep. Broken glass. Broken glass. Nice. What else have we got here? Spilled or mixed potions leaking down on them. Monsters being released from cages as the building breaks. Yes. Okay. Escaping opponents, creatures, monsters. So you guys you've got plenty of ideas. I'm not going to include all of them. I'm going to give you some very basic stuff with the intent to try to give you a little bit of variety, and then you can just figure out which thing will be able to slot into what. Okay? Arcana check for using a spell. Yes. You like the monster cage one. Mixing potions, leaking down on them. Leaking potions. Okay. So my last one was going to be a sprint as the structure comes down, but I actually like the idea of jumping over a missing floor section. So I'm thinking we will replace just the sheer sprint out with a jump over a missing floor section. And that's it. So 3 pieces of information required. You can have a fight in the middle of a skill challenge for sure. By a black spider as well. You're being chased as well. So you included a chase. So dealing with the enemies. Saving survivors. Saving survivors. Hello, Michael Riggs. How are you doing? 10. Saving survivors. Survivors. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down a couple of things here and get us started. I've selected the things that I think we will use as a demonstration. So, okay, so this is the first thing. The description of our event. The building begins to shake and crumble inside and out, inside and outside, outside. The ceiling is it's falling Doors are being blocked. And floor sections are collapsing to the ground level. So you could have so your building might be tall. It might be a one level structure to the foundation level. So that's what we've got here. The goal: the characters must escape I'm actually thinking that rescuing survivors might be even more fun. Okay, so the characters must escape. Although I feel like that's we'll see how we go. Before the whole building collapses on them. Okay. All right, so that's our task. Now you're probably thinking there must be a certain number of successes and failures, and I'm not doing that. Don't. Now, the reason I'm going to explain why I'm not having a certain number of successes and failures. The reason I'm not having a certain number of successes and failures for this is this. I've always found with a collapsing building that it's the final stage that is the most important. And if you have 3 stages and they fail the first stage and the second stage, and your requirement is if they fail 2 stages out of the 3, they fail the whole thing, narratively it tends to come apart on you. And the idea is not to drop the whole building on them. So we're not going to do that, because it's potentially a possibility if we set it up that way. If we say 2 failures before, you have to, once you get 2 failures, you fail the whole thing out of 3 stages. Even if you give yourself 4 stages and you say 2 failures out of the 4 stages, it still runs into the same problem as a collapsing building falling on you means you're either trapped and dead, or you're trapped and who's going to save you. And trapped and who's going to save you is fine. Trapped and dead is not so great, particularly since you've just wiped out the entire party if it's a group situation, which this is. This is a group. The whole group's involved. So I've always found that it's probably better not to use that. Don't base success or failure on a specific number of dice roll tests. That's what I'm going to say. Okay, just that right there. Hi, Cataline. How are you doing? Now let's have a look at chat. I'm going to write down your ideas at the bottom of this so you can just pore over this stuff and then plug things in where you need to. Okay. Yeah. Good morning. It's actually afternoon for me, but good morning if it's morning for you. So deal with the enemies. Being chased. 11. Being chased. So we've done a chase before, so you can use a lot of the mechanics from the chase scene and just port them into this. So I don't want to do a chase again because we've kind of done it before. Saving survivors is a good idea though, Michael. It's a very good idea. Question. Where's the Tarask? It's Tarascat. He was just hit the building with his tail. Yes. Yes, that's right. There may be a bigger issue. But first problem is getting out of the building. That's why we're making skill challenge. Yes, medicine check for saving survivors. I definitely think that's a good idea. That would be maybe a first aid, medicine check. It could be a wisdom check. Yeah, lots of different things going on there. Yes, it is. It is. Yes, a lot of happy people are in here right now. Sunday morning in Sydney. Ah, okay, right. Let me just get some food, drink into me. Let's get the next task along, which is to write up the scenes we're going to take. And I think the ones that I like the most are definitely collapsing ceiling, blocked doorway, and help survivors. Blocked doorway can be you can put the missing floorway in there as a substitute. It'll be using pretty much all the same sorts of things anyway. Okay. Apply advantage to a d20 dice roll when a character receives help. Yes. Has the Outlander background. Now, why did I put the Outlander background? No. No, I don't. If there's a background that you can think of that would help you escape a building, you let me know. But I just don't think that really applies. I could be wrong. Okay. Is proficient in survival or nature skill? No. Has tremor sense. Has tremor sense? That would be something. Has stone cunning. Is a ranger or a druid? No. So none of these sort of, I feel like, make sense unless you can explain to me why. I'm going to take these away. And it's not necessarily a stone structure, but tremor sense would make sense. Tremor sense would make sense? Yeah, okay, tremor sense. Yeah, so if you decide to make this go from being a building to a cavern or a cave, then yes, dwarven cunning would, stone cunning would make sense. But I'm going to build it around being a Bible fire. Yeah, so I'm going to build this around it being a building rather than a cavern, and you can just change it up when you need to. Snowy night in hot Scotland. Oh. So I can't think of a background that would help you within a collapsing building. So unless you can think of something, is proficient in survival. I'm going to put down survival. I don't know about nature, so we're going to survival skill. Okay, is proficient in survival. Is proficient in the survival skill. Well, there was something, wisdom. His training, and I guess wisdom, and has tremor sense, or has tremor sense. So these are all options. I think that's good. Windy day in New Zealand? Yeah, kind of. So here we go. So I'm going to put in a little note for you to start thinking about. Since I've already put in a few things based off what we had before. Hashtag. Where are you? Hashtag. What would give a character advantage or benefits while a building is collapsing? There is my question. So I want you to have a think about that. I have already written up something under special help note. Okay, apply advantage to a dice roll when a character receives help, which is essentially just a re-roll. Okay, is proficient in the survival skill, has training in wisdom, or has tremor sense. Okay, so that's the easy way to get it. Right, here we go. I'm going to just scroll on down here and start putting in some different things. The building shakes. You see what I'm doing here, people? The building shakes violently, causing furniture. Oh, future furniture. Furniture to move. Walls and ceilings. Walls and ceilings collapse. The character needs to avoid being struck by falling debris. How easy was that? That was pretty simple, wasn't it? What's this? If they had an animal. If they had an animal. I see what you're trying to go with this. As an animal would be good at getting out of a building quickly. I don't know about you, but I find that animals do not do well when the ground shakes. They they can freeze up, and they don't necessarily run out of falling buildings particularly well. If you've seen what happens with animals, they just run, and you don't even know where they're going to run to. So it's really going to be up to you to add that if you want to. I'm going to leave it alone based on my experience with animals. Arcana check for certain spells would give advantage. So what sort of spells are we talking about? What type of spells are we talking about? Because it's too broad. I don't know enough of how I can sort of make that work. So give me a bit more, Nacho. Okay. Individual skills. We'll come back to this because right now we don't need to worry about that. We're not doing a group check. You might have noticed that I take out the group check sometimes, and sometimes I don't. In this case, I'm kind of taking out the group check for the first bit. Scenario 1, 2. Okay, 2. Here we go. So we've got the first scenario down. The second scenario, we're going to change this up a little bit. So this is, I think what we'll do is we're going to get some rescuing going on. We're going to put that as the second one rather than the last one, since this works out really nicely. So a larger portion of the building has collapsed onto creatures and humanoids that have become trapped. How easy was this? The characters have a limited amount of time to rescue the victims before the entire building comes down on top of them. So that is our scenario 2. Okay, for those of you who are wondering. Fast reactions, sure-footedness. Okay, so let's have a look here. What do you got here, Charles? Advantage if you have proficiency with mason's tools or carpenter's tools. Charles, good explanation. Good explanation. Fair enough. We'll do that. Sure-footedness, fast reactions. Fast reactions. Okay, so let's have a look here. We'll add in a fourth, sure-footedness. I don't know what sure-footedness is. It sounds like it's from Pathfinder or 3.5. Sure-footedness. Mechanic. Is it from a particular system, is it? I don't know. Is this sure-footedness from something that I would be aware of, Mike? So yeah, I'll leave the sure-footedness. Fast reactions. What is fast reactions? Is that an RPG? Fast reactions sounds familiar. Okay, I'm not sure what to do with those, so I think we'll leave them alone. I'm going to close this. I'm going to close this. I'm going to keep this, and I'll go here. Okay. So what we'll do here is somebody had mentioned something that I probably should add, and that's what Charles had added, something that I thought was actually not so bad. Okay, so or training. This. So training in masonry or carpentry. Little footnote, depends on the... Now I'm just trying to think about this. Would the structural side of things apply to building a wooden structure and a block stone structure? There are some basic principles, but I don't think it translates completely when I think about it. I mean, I've built a few houses with the experts before. I don't know that that's actually gonna... Yeah, it depends on the building material. Honestly, it is much harder to build a stone structure than a wooden structure. Just building a block wall is difficult in comparison to a wall that isn't made out of block. Block and stone. Not just the physical labour side of things. But you do make a good point as training and engineering, because engineering would apply to anything. So training. That's really what you're getting at there, Mike, aren't you? Training and engineering. And depending on your system, you may have that very thing there. Okay. I've added it in. No, Mike, I get it. I'm just trying to translate it in. Yeah, no, it's all right. Don't feel bad about the fact that I might not have used it. I was just trying to sort of see how I can structure it. I mean, this note here is really something that you as game masters will expand on. I'm just giving you some examples that are nice and easy. Okay? Right. So we've got scene 2, we've got scene 1, we need scene 3. The characters must escape the earthquake. Well, it's not an earthquake. The characters must escape the collapsing building now this is a hole opening up, now which means we could use it easily as a floor, but I don't want to do the floor one. Instead what I'm going to do is what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a blocked doorway, because you're probably going to need a blocked doorway more than anything else, right? The characters must skip the building, the collapsing building, but a door or doorway is blocked by a large, heavy rafter. Okay, the rafter must be moved to take the quickest route out of the building. Out of the building, okay. Okay, so the characters must escape the collapsing building, but a door or doorway is blocked by a large heavy rafter. The rafter must be moved to take the quickest route out of the building if they are to escape before the structure is destroyed. Okay. Okay, so now here we go. This is a little. I put in a little note here. The not so much not the depth, but the damage. Damage the debris walls and ceiling is dependent on the character's level. Debris. Okay, all right, cool. So there's our 3 scenes that we have, and so now it's just a matter of going through and plugging in the various things that we need. Okay. What I want to do is I want to take all the ideas that you had before, and I'm going to list them down the bottom here. Since it'll be going on to Patreon, those of you who are patrons can take these. Additional suggested stages okay, so we're going to give you some additional stages. These are all the ones that you guys have suggested. Okay, so first off was one, just straight out sprint. Now, was that sprint? No, this is actually quite boring, so we're not going to leave that out. Here we go. Exploding water pipes to get past. A fire starts in the building. Here we go. There we go, and there. Cool. Next, missing floor section. A section, the floor is missing or collapses. Broken glass on a floor that needs be navigated. Okay. Let's do this. Let's see if I can find that. That's what I want. We're going to go bold, underline, bold, underline. For those of you who are wondering on Patreon when I'm putting up the stuff on Patreon, it's just that Trojan virus has caused me a little bit of trouble, so it's slowing me down a little bit. But I'll get there. Don't you worry. Okay, so this is that one. This is a different format. Oh, this is Droid, is it? Let's find Droid. Okay. I was wondering why the formatting looked different. Okay, so let's put in the rest of these. It's top of the hour. I should be taking a break. Yeah, just optional extras. Okay. Feed dog back. We onto new. Not a problem. Feed the dog for sure. So let's just get the rest of these and down that you guys have come up with. This is broken glass. Avoid the escaping monsters. When cages broken. What was the well, let's just, I'm sorry, we'll go down a bit. We've got saving survivors already, so that's not necessary for that one. And then leaking potions. Oh, being chased. Being chased by someone through the building. And leaking potions are responsible for collapse. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of additional ideas you can push in there or shove in there depending on what you need for your narrative and your story that works with whatever you're doing, should your building be falling down. I've just taken 3 that I think are going to be good examples of this. So going right back to the beginning, we're going to do individual skills, we're going to do alternatives, and then I'm going to go very briefly over the consequences. So some examples of hashtag what skills would you use to avoid falling debris or ceiling? So have a think about that. I'm going to go and take a short break. I will be back and we'll continue with this. As I know you've probably already seen a lot of stuff here that can be easily ported over. I get it. I just want you to have a think about it, and then I will get moving in a second. I'm just going to take a quick break. It won't be long, 5 minutes or less. Right. There we go. Nicely done. I was wondering if somebody would figure out the shield. Bible fight, you're on the right track. Small, you can use a person as a shield. Ah, dear. You're funny. Okay. No, I don't want to. Is it that hot? No, I'm just taking the hat off. It's going to just be easier. All right, let's do this way. Okay, so individual stuff. We have the building shaking violently, causing furniture to move, walls and ceilings collapse. The characters need to avoid being struck by falling debris. So, why does it not recognize this? Debris. Okay, all right. A character can run past a collapsing building. No, so we're not going to do the run thing. So this is athletics. Now, run is fine. Run is fine, yes. And I would go there potentially if it seemed like it would be entertaining, but we're not going to do that. We've got a survival check. We could potentially use a survival check to get to the open area. This is not going to be any good. So to get to an open area, no, we're not going to get to an open area. So when I do this with you people, it's not just to make a skill challenge that you can just download off Patreon or copy yourself from what I've done on the live stream. It's to show you how to build them yourself. Okay. Characters can attempt to somersault, tumble, out of harm's way. So this is an acrobatics check. So what I'm going to put in here is a dexterity. Dexterity. So dexterity, agility, something like that. I'm going to set the DC quite high. It's harm's way. Move under door frame. Table. Attempt to somersault and tumble out of the way. So we'll do this. It might also be possible to move under a door frame, table, bed, or piece of furniture. Piece of strong furniture. Without being hit by debris by making acrobatics dexterity check of DC 20. So that's what we'll do, is we'll do that. That's our... Okay, characters can try to avoid falling debris as they dash across the earthquake area. So this is a saving throw. So this is where you're deciding you're going to have a reaction going on. Okay, so characters can try to dodge falling debris as they dash across the room to the doorway. And I set the DC there already. So what have we got here? Hand of 8. How are you? Dodge. Yes. So we've used the dodge idea. So depending on how they describe it, what they're trying to do, you've got a couple of mechanics. One that is reactive. One is they roll the dice in a different way. Okay. If it's Tom Cruise type running, yeah, well, that's exactly it. So Nacho man, you may have noticed, this is why when you asked me about the collapsing building, I said refer to the earthquake, because the earthquake will give you what you really need. Combine athletics, intelligence to know whether to zip or to zag. Yes, you could. That might be a secondary check, using an intelligence check. Now, depending on what you think is reasonable, I want an athletics check here rather than an acrobatics check. And the reason why is to do with what Bible Fire had suggested. And that is the shield. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So strength. I'll set DCs very high, you've noticed, because it should be hard. Okay, a character can deflect, the collapsing building pieces. By holding a shield over their head or a strong piece of furniture, like maybe a chair. Okay, so a character can deflect the collapsing building pieces by holding, a shield over their head or a strong piece of furniture with an athletics strength check of DC 20. So for those of you who have marshals who have a shield, suddenly the shield becomes really useful because now you can actually sort of bounce those little suckers off. Okay, I've set the DCs quite hard, but it gives you a few options in terms of, you know, what are you able to do. All right, so let's do the survival to get an. Oh no, we're not going to get to an open area. To get to a to find a strong door. Okay, to find. To find a strong doorway, table or structure to use as cover from the falling objects, make a survival be wisdom check of DC 18. So there is sort of your structure for your individual checks. For those of you who are like, oh, how would you do that? Well, there it is. And it's mostly done for you. And that was just from the earthquake. You reckon it should be very hard. Very hard. Holding something above your head rather than getting out of the way. Fair enough. Fair enough, Bonfire. I'll go with that. On that first shield slanted in front of me so I can know my footing. I think put it above your head is a better idea. Very hard. So that's fine. Let's put it as very hard. Let's say it's there, but it's not going to be that easy. So it's not necessarily the first go-to. Holding something above your head as that the building's coming down on you is probably, even if it's small bits of debris, is probably not a great idea, right? Okay, so that's fine. Do that. So what I've done here is I've just given you individual checks. I've given you a couple of different skill checks or ability checks. I've given you a saving throw, and I've given you one that's sort of around intelligence stuff. So I wouldn't say intelligence is the one you would use. I'd say wisdom is probably more appropriate than intelligence when a collapsing building comes into play. But I'm just bundling these together as tests. So whether they're a primary test or a secondary test, they all go together. So that's what you mean. That's what I mean. The alternative solutions have nothing ever to do with rolling dice. Casting the shield spell will give the character protection from falling on terrain and objects, granting automatic success. So if you've got a shield spell, something like that, or something else that shield spell. or protective barrier spells. So there's your example. So the rogue and the monk have evasion class features in 5e, automatic success on this task. So it'd be great if you were a rogue or a monk and you're the right level. You may not be the right level though. So those are some alternatives. Those are just from last time. We're going to come back to those, okay? So alternative, yeah, as I said, all the dice rolls I put in one place. So they are the alternatives, the secondaries, and the primaries. And you just decide how they're going to work. Okay. What is this? Feeding fish now from top. Eat the falling. I don't know what that means. Do we have any obvious ways out as obvious ways out? So I guess, is there a spell? I don't know. You let me know. Can you think of a spell in whatever game system you're playing that would apply to giving you alternative solutions to this? I've put forward shield, protective barrier. There's another one that nobody said, which I know is going to come, but I'll mention it anyway. And that is teleportation spells. Problem with teleportation spells, if they've got this, you're probably, the skill challenge is over. Short or long range teleportation spells. Give automatic success. Probably what you're going to wind up is it doesn't make sense that they don't do this. So I'll put it in there, okay? So there's some alternatives. If you can come up with alternatives, great. Wild shape. How would wild shape work? I guess that would be my question. So the failure criteria for this: characters that fail to avoid the falling debris take a setback worth of bludgeoning damage. So setback in whatever system you're playing would be, it's not deadly, it's not a large amount of damage. Okay. And 5e we know what a setback is because it's in the D&D Dungeon Master Guide. But your system, really, you're just trying to wound them a little bit, or bloody them a little bit, or tire them out a little bit, however your system works. Okay, characters that succeed. Okay, so that's failing. You take a little bit of damage. Characters that succeed, dodging the collapsing building, debris. Okay, characters that succeed, dodge the collapsing walls and ceiling. Parts, pieces. There we go. Right, that's that one done. Next, we have a large portion of the building is collapsing, and this is where we have to try to rescue some people. Now, we don't have to do this, but it's nice to include it. Do you know what I mean? One of the reasons why I took out the group check sort of thing for the first one is, as I said, there's no consequence for the group check, primarily because I always find it doesn't work. it just, narratively, it breaks everything down. So second one, large portion of the building has collapsed onto creatures and humanoids that have become trapped. The characters have a limited amount of time to rescue the victims before the entire building comes down on them. So, hashtag. What do characters do to rescue trapped creatures in the building? That's your next question, right? Walter Armadillo. Bible Armadillo. Okay. Oh yeah. The character transforms into a earth, say elemental, or an armadillo. And you're probably wondering, what's the deal, Fred, with all this automatic success for alternatives? Because you're draining resources, people. It's ultimately what you're doing with the alternatives. If you want to have a dice roll involved in using these strategies, that's up to you. But I'm going to suggest that in many cases, it's just an excuse to drain what they have. Okay, so a character can remove walls or ceiling pieces from a trapped humanoid with a athletics check of DC 15 using a pole, crowbar, or some object that can be used as leverage to give advantage on the dice roll. So what we've done here is we've set our DC, and you get advantage if you have these things, and this is what you're trying to hit, is your DC 15. Okay, so it's basically a strength check. Okay, so that's that one. What else was there? Was that Bible Fire? If my charge is to rescue another, or they him prone, I don't understand any of that. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Sorry. Okay, so outside it works with a spade, but a spade is probably not going to work. So a character with a spade or shovel can attempt to dig a hole under a fallen structure to help a creature get free with an athletics check of DC 20. So we hit it. We put the DC higher because it was supposed to take a lot longer. It's the same sort of thing. So what we might want to do is actually eliminate this, because we've kind of covered all of this. And inside a building, you're probably not going to be digging with a spade or a shovel, correct? So what we'll do is we're going to use a medicine or a first aid check of some kind or something like that for this one. And it's going to look a little bit like, now how am I going to word this? A character with a healer's kit, first aid kit, can attempt to bandage a wounded humanoid or animal that has been pulled free from rubble. Okay, so a character with a healer's kit or first aid kit can attempt to bandage a badly wounded humanoid or animal that has been pulled free from rubble to to ensure they survive. So we're doing something a little bit different with A, and we'll go here, medicine, so this is wisdom. I'm actually going to put wisdom intelligence, because I don't actually understand why we use wisdom rather than, I mean I do know why. We use it because of the cleric. That's the intelligence. Check. Okay, so that gives us two different things we're doing. We're either getting them out from underneath something, or we are looking at a situation where we do a medicine check. So we've got a couple of different options there. What have you got here? Nacho, sorry, at work. So dipping in and out of the stream. That's all right, Nacho man. I totally understand. Charisma check to keep the NPCs moving, stopping panic. Okay, let's add that. Let's put this. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a copy paste here. Save myself a bit of time. And I've set a very high DC for that, and because it should be hard. And then we'll go paste, and a character can calm panicking humanoids. Panicking humanoids or animals that are trying to get out of the building with a... Now, this is probably going to be a secondary check, because remember, we're looking back at the fact that we're dealing with trapped individuals. That's not going to help trapped individuals. These two kind of do that. This one doesn't. This is something else. So you might be using this as a way of getting advantage on the other stuff, potentially. But then again, you might change the narrative of what I put forward in the scenario too. Kind of, it really is up to you. Character can calm panicking humanoids or animals that are trying to get out of the collapsing building. With a, now it's going to be, I'm going to go with a influence persuasion, perception, and it's going to be charisma check. Here we go, charisma. DC, we could set the DC a lot higher or lower depending on, that's medium difficulty. It's not hard. How likely are we going to be using this? So I guess you've got to decide on what difficulty you want it is. Pay no attention. Is a second aid kit more advanced? I have no idea. You tell me. Okay, all right. So we'll set a DC for this that is, we'll set it a little bit higher than, because it's, yeah, we're going to set it a little bit higher. I'll put it as an 18. Look, these numbers you can change, people. You don't have to be tied to them. So we've got a few alternatives that we had used before. I don't see anybody chucking anything that's sort of like, think spells, class abilities, race abilities. How would you get somebody out from underneath fallen terrain? You know, like walls and ceilings. How would you do that as an alternative method? So animate object spell can be used to remove rubble from trapped creatures quickly, granting automatic success. So there you go. There's one way. Mold earth won't work here because we're not near the ground. Okay, so mold earth can be used. So we're not going to be digging anybody out because it's a building. This works better when you're outside. So we'll take this one away. If somebody's got a solution that they can think of, then put it forward. A droid with wild shape can transform into a badger or mole and dig a human free of the debris. Probably not going to be that, but they might be able to transform into something that is stronger than they are. That's potentially an option, correct? So a droid with wild shape could transform into a stronger animal to make, now this is going to be a little bit different, to make digging, to make pulling a humanoid free of the debris easier. I'm not going to give them automatic success, but I'm going to make it easier. Okay, well, we're going to sit within the narrative here. So how do you get them out from underneath debris? Can somebody think of anything else? Use a polearm staff as leverage. So polearm staff and leverage here. So using a pole, this is part of our first thing. So that's your equipment, Charles. So we've got that. That's already there. We've done this. This is alternatives. Outside of using a crowbar, a pole, some of the object is leverage, what else could we do? What is anything that does telekinesis, that lifts objects? Animate object is a spell, but isn't there a telekinesis one as well? I'm pretty sure there is. Telekinesis. Let me just see if I can just get this right. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that, but we'll just check. Telekinesis. Okay, alright, so far off. So you use telekinesis maybe to lift it off. Telekinesis spell. Move an object at a distance with mental powers. Alright, so that's what we're going to employ. Okay, telekinesis spells to lift or move walls and ceilings from a distance if they can apply enough force. Force. Try there you go. Do we want to do give automatic success? Now the reason I'm putting this down here is that you as a game master have to decide whether telekinesis seems like a better option than being just muscling it up. You wouldn't use telekinesis unless it was going to be better than just lifting it, right? Hopefully your players understand that. Levitate. Now, does levitate allow you to lift a person or an object? I despise spells that are like, yeah, okay, you can cast magic missile, but you can only cast it at living creatures. Or levitate spell, I mean, yeah, I guess. Misty step in, misty step out. Possibly. I think we also I think what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with teleportation spells. Teleportation spells that allow the spellcaster to make other creatures change position, location, grants automatic success. So Misty Step would probably not help, but maybe a different spell might, potentially. Again, completely up to you. I mean, I'm quite serious about this. I'm just spitballing this, but consequences of the group check. The group fails to rescue enough creatures and they plus every character. No, hang on. The group fails to rescue enough creatures. Creatures or humanoids. So if you fail to do this bit, every character gains a level of exhaustion. So that is failing. The group succeeds in rescuing all the humanoids and aren't fatigued. So it's not a damage thing here that we're dealing with. So you could decide to just fail it. They may even dislodge this little sucker as a group check. You may find that narratively they decide, people dying, we'll just leave them to die. And then suddenly you're like, okay, well, they're not fatigued because they hang around. So suddenly this becomes a non-event. May not apply. May not apply. If they leave everyone to die. There we go. And it's possible your players will leave everybody to die. Okay, consequence of failure for individuals. Failing to rescue enough humanoids and creatures trapped by rubble results in them dying as the next collapse hits the room, and they gain a level of exhaustion. Okay, so the character succeeds in rescuing enough of the humanoids and they aren't exhausted. So there are our consequences. Here's our last one that we need to finish off. Unfortunately, we should have just enough time. Tensor's floating disc. Yes. Can be cast anywhere. You can see it. Cast under the debris. That's very smart. So Charles, absolutely. Let's put that in. I was almost ready to rock it off, but yeah, no, we'll put that there. Tensor's floating disc. Cast under rubble. Can be used to lift the building pieces off a humanoid for automatic success. Nice one. Well done there, Charles. That was good, smart. Definitely a good idea, and it could come up if somebody has it. So yeah. Okay, so third scenario. The characters must escape the collapsing building, but a door or doorway, it could be both, is blocked by a large, heavy rafter. The rafter must be moved to take the quickest route out of the building if they are to escape before the structure is destroyed. Okay, the damage the debris, walls and ceiling do is dependent on the character level. So we're going to be careful about what we do in terms of our consequence. So we've got a couple of things that we can use, but this is one of those times where I'm going to put in something slightly different. Because a lot of our options here that we put in for the other one don't really apply. Okay. Yes, and does it need to lift? How far does it need to lift off That's the question. Hi Fred, how's it going? Hashtag. Hashtag. What does a character do to unblock a doorway? A door or doorway. Okay. So I am going to present some ideas here. So we can't use somersaulting. Acrobatics won't help us in the slightest. Probably not going to be something we do. A character can jump, clear, run, that's athletics. Probably not really going to be doing that much. We've got a dexterity check. Dexterity check's not really going to apply here either. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this one completely. Dexterity is not really a factor. Given our scenario, it's not going to work. What we can do, a character can... Now, I'm going to actually build this in as a 2-point idea. So a character can lift, lift the rafter, partially out of the way with an athletics strength check of DC 25. So that's quite hard. And it won't clear the area completely. Okay, it's partially out of the way. A character can lift the rafter partially out of the way, of the door frame. Okay, so that's that one. Here's another choice. Do I want it to do that? No, I don't. I'm going to have to rewrite this completely, so I will. And it's... Oh, okay, so I've got 2 different things going on here. Okay, here we go. 1 meter, 3 feet off the ground. Might not work, I'll admit. 3 feet, 1 meter is a long way off the ground. Like, you probably would work. I mean, if you're having to lift higher than a 1 meter, I don't think there's any hope. There must be a giant that you're trying to pull out. Okay, I'm going to present an old mechanic to you now, and that is the combined strength score of the party members that work together to lift the rafter out of the way. Must equal 50 is a good number. That means that each member should at least have a DC 10. If you have 4 members, that means that some of them will need to be a little bit stronger, some will be a little bit weaker, but 50 is not a bad number. Well, let's set it at 50. So all it requires is for your group to say, we're going to work together and lift the rafter out of the way. And so you just add them all up and you're done. That's a very old mechanic. That's right. The Joe X RF, old mechanic. Yeah, that's right back to 1E. Yes, that's exactly right. It is right back to 1E. And why not? Enlarge, reduce the beam. Yes, you could. Enlarge, reduce the beam. That's actually a good alternative strategy. Absolutely. I agree. Nice idea. So really, we've set them up for strength, but we've also set them up for success, because they just need to work together and they'll succeed. They just got to work together. If they don't work together, no success. Okay, let's go here. Why am I having trouble getting this to work? Come on. We're not going to be somersaulting anywhere. So there is our check. So let's put in some, drop a vial of acid or a bag of bearings behind the debris to help move things around. Not a bad idea. Yeah, ball bearings might work depending on where they are. They have to be on a very hard surface. Enlarge, reduce the beam if you're able to. Yes, yeah. Flying won't help you. So forget about flying. Fly, levitate spell can be cast to stop falling. No, that's not going to help you either. Levitate, I don't think that's going to work. So let's just ditch that one. Teleportation, dimension doors, misty step spells can be cast. Get clear of the earthquakes. Get clear of the building. And the problem is with teleportation is it tends to sort of ruin the whole thing. If they have teleportation, you're probably not running the skill challenge, people. Okay, spider climb or spell can be cast to grab onto the side. No, we're not really going to be spider climbing anywhere. So we'll get rid of this. And feather fall, no. Slow fall, monk, no. Polymorph might work if you transform into something strong enough to make a hole. So use a spell to reduce the rafter. Reduce the rafter so that it can be lifted clear with ease. Grant automatic success. Right, we got that one. Gaseous form, I was waiting for somebody to say, you saw it down the bottom there, right? You saw gaseous form, Fred. Tinsel won't work with these spells. Tensor's floating disc may allow you to lift the beam and then you move the thing around. It depends on how heavy you decide to make it. So what we'll do is I will take Tensor's floating disc because I don't think I think it's a reasonable concept. Yeah. And we'll chuck it in here. Because we definitely Flint's cast under the rafter. Can be used to lift the building piece out of the way for automatic success. So we've got that one. Polymorph spell can be used to transform into a large or strong to a stronger creature so that they can lift the rafter more easily. Okay, use gaseous form or potion allows a character to squeeze through a narrow gap in the the rubble. Blocking the door. Grant automatic success. So there we go. Granting automatic success. There we go. Let's just do that. So you've got a few alternatives there. I mean, if you were carrying any humanoids with it by chance, well, if you've got humanoids on there, then that's going to be a problem. But if there's nobody on there, it might work. You never know. It depends on how heavy you decide to make it. My last game last night provided that proved that rocks fall. Bit true. Okay, so I felt bad about not having a way to get them to work together without seeming overbearing, a railroady. So Charles, did this present you with some potential solutions they might have been able to sort of work with? Is there anything here that you could have used that night? And you should never feel bad that you wind up with a situation. Naturally, things happen, and it's sort of like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? How's this work? Characters that fail to avoid characters that fail to avoid getting past the blocked doorway have to take the long route out of the building, and part of it collapses on top of them. Take a deadly take a deadly amount of bludgeoning damage. Okay. So, the last one's going to be pretty rough. A character that succeeds doesn't gets out of the building before it collapses. Okay, and that's it. There is your falling and collapsing building. There's your basic mechanics. There are some sort of options there. 1d6 adventure level. So all your systems will probably have something in place that tells you what deadly damage is. I don't mean fatal damage. I mean deadly. And teleport is nice, but a single action 7th level spell, that caster better use those slots wisely, depending on how long the... Look, if the teleportation spell does not require them to have line of sight, they're gone. And if they can take somebody else with them, then there's part of the party is just left. The skill challenge. So yeah, so that's it. There's your collapsing building. It's really simple. It's actually not as hard as you might think. There's a couple of different sort of things going on here. Move some stuff out of the way, avoid getting hit by debris, rescue some people. And then, of course, you've got your alternative things you can give it a go. Like, Okay, that's it. We are all good. We are all done. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody in a second, but let me just transition over. I will put this up onto Patreon once I am sure that my Trojan virus has not caused problems. My next step is to actually get rid of the cookies because it doesn't seem to have actually embedded itself into my system, but it's trying. So I might still be able to capture it, little sucker, before it gets too far. We'll see how we go. I'm hoping that'll be the case. Let's have a look at our poll. Have you included a collapsing building in your role-playing game adventures? Yes, 42%. Okay, no, 42%. 42%. Interesting. Not sure, 11%. Just watching, 5%. Wow, that's an interesting combination. So there's a few people who have and a few people who haven't. Well, I'm hoping that this was useful to people for today. I'll be talking about the Cyclops tomorrow. For those of you who are wondering what sort of Cyclops I'm talking about the Cyclops as in the Cyclops. So it'd be far more, it's not going to be just the D&D Cyclops. I will talk about that Cyclops, yes, but I'll be talking about the mythological Cyclops, which means primarily the Greek Cyclops, because that's kind of where it came from. Do you know what I mean? I think that's probably the best way I can describe this. A lot of detail, and we'll be going back to doing some monster building stuff. So yeah, that's what's tomorrow. You get the Cyclops. Okay, cool. Anyway, I'm gonna get going since I've got to go work and do the day job, actually make money to pay for everything. So I want to say a big thank you to World Anvil for sponsoring this live stream. It's a big deal. I want to say thank you to my patrons as well. Everybody who's been on Patreon, it's a big help. It really is. All of the documentation for this will go up onto Patreon eventually. Just give me a bit of time. Also, I want to thank everybody who took part in the poll today and commented in the chat, provided feedback. Really, really helpful. I do appreciate it. Please keep doing it because it does help. You communicating with me, giving your feedback makes everything better. I want to thank everybody who watches the replay of this and the edited videos and the shorts videos, and wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.